Hey everybody, this is Josh from AirOps. I do content and SEO, and I am with Connor B from LegalZoom. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And you just told me some really good news from your end. You're no longer an SEO analyst. You are now what?
Senior SEO manager as of this morning.
Oh yeah, that's
I'm
awesome. So glad to hear that. We have a tradition here where if this is your first time ever on a AirOps webinar, please put a star in the chat. So star. Sometimes I have to type it out. I need to prep this a little bit earlier. Star equals first time. And then if you have been with us more than once, put a rocket ship in the chat. So rocket ship equals 2 times plus. And go ahead and tell us where you're from in the chat as well. I'm calling from Manhattan in New York. And where are you, Connor?
I'm from Chicago.
Connor's in Chicago. So we are all here today to talk about Reddit. Connor has some really great workflows. He has 3 workflows he's going to share for us at Reddit. This is part of our content engineering series here on Fridays. We've been doing workflows, a deep dive. If you were with us on Tuesday, we talked with Ross Simmons from Foundation Inc., and he went over a huge Reddit strategy. And then I also showed a little bit of what you can do in AirOps with Reddit. But Connor is literally one person on my team described him as one of the best AirOps builders, and he has been working in Reddit with his company LegalZoom, and so we're going to dive into that. So first, we'll talk about what problems he was trying to solve, his solution in AirOps, those results, and then we will do a Q&A. So if you have questions for Connor, you can start leaving those in the comments. And then one thing I did want to mention, if you want to take a look at some workflows in AirOps, some Reddit workflows. What Connor's going to be showing us is custom, but we do have some Reddit power agents, and you can build all of this yourself. If you're interested in that, feel free to drop us a line at growth@airops.com and put Reddit in the subject line. So I'll be mentioning that again, but you can get your exclusive package and learn how to thrive in AI search with Reddit and other content workflows too. So we are going to start. Connor, we're going to dive right in. We're going to take some questions at the end, but I will hand the keys over to you and let you get going.
Great. Also, for the problem you're trying to solve at LegalZoom when it comes to Reddit is, and I think a lot of us have experienced this, where SEO is evolving to be much more of a brand channel than it's ever been. And when it comes to talking about brand, social proof goes hand in hand with that, right? So it's how does an enterprise level company engage on a platform like Reddit that is traditionally less forgiving for marketers in a way that comes across as authentic and genuinely provides value, but then also does that in a way that addresses the business needs and does it quickly and efficiently. And so we knew we had to start engaging with certain communities like entrepreneur or LLC or small business. And we needed to find ways to not just take up space, but add to the conversation in a way that really helped people and built our reputation as a source of truth and expertise and authority. But the human way to solve that, the purely human way to solve that, just didn't work out on paper, right? If you think about everything that needs to go into answering questions at scale across these subreddits, if we go through the process without AirOps, it looks like identifying these posts when they happen across subreddits, which you can do with Reddit Pro Tools, taking the questions, bringing them to an internal content manager who would then source articles that could potentially, from our base, that could potentially answer the question, passing that off to a writer to actually do the writing, editing it, legally reviewing it, bringing it to a community manager, and then posting it. So all told, it's 5 people, and you're lucky if this takes less than 48 hours. So the first problem we were trying to solve is how do we do this quickly and efficiently? And for that, we built our first workflow for Reddit, which is Project Greenline. Now, this is fairly simple, and I know that you guys have a power step for it now, but we needed to build this kind of more bespoke because of the needs of us as a company in terms of compliance and avoiding UPL and things like that. So this workflow is very straightforward. The way it works is it intakes the URL of a specific Reddit post within a subreddit that we care about, right? It ingests the contents of that post and then also the community guidelines of the subreddit in which it was posted, which is very important. Don't want to get banned, don't want to get dinged. Once it has those things, It seeks to answer the question being asked by searching our knowledge base of legally reviewed articles, right? We put a lot of time into having actual attorneys review our content these days. And so we're restricting its knowledge base to only those articles. It extracts the articles that are most relevant to the question, generates a Reddit appropriate V1 of the response. So it's got the correct character length, structure, formatting, maybe an emoji or two, and then outputs that into the Google Drive of our community manager. From there, the community manager takes that doc, does a pass themselves, and then passes it to our legal reviewers who do the final pass, make sure that everything is correct, everything is relevant to the question being asked, and is actually valuable, and then we post it. So we spoke earlier about the human version of this taking minimum 48 hours and 5 people. This takes 2 people, 1.5 people, and 30 minutes at most, and allows you and has allowed us to respond to hundreds of these types of questions over the past month or two in a way that we feel actually provides value and drives engagement.
So you're able to respond to more questions like more frequently then.
Yeah, and more quickly, because with Reddit, I mean, even if you let a question bake for a couple of days without a response, there's no guarantee that you're going to contribute to the conversation anymore. So being able to respond and giving your community team the tools to self-serve that response, most importantly, allows them to be the first to the table and really provide that expert information immediately.
Yeah, and just to be clear for kind of everybody listening, you're not posting directly on Reddit from this workflow. You're like putting it in a Google Doc, then I think you said community managers are like reviewing and editing it and like kind of verifying it, make sure that it's up to your standards.
Yeah, so something that we very strongly believe in at LegalZoom is that we never post anything to prod that is AI generated, right? There's just the stakes are too high with the things that we talk about, people's businesses, estate plans, livelihoods. So everything has a human pass at the end, but you can reduce, your time boxing by 70, 80, 90% if you just do like the data and information aggregation on the front end and then pass it off to the experts to really button it up and really make sure that it's correct and accurate.
Yeah, and then someone put a comment here, Sarah, thanks in the Q&A. She's asking about I would say not only your response to your comments, but how are you kind of doing your comments? Is it from like a LegalZoom brand account? Is it a combination of multiple different accounts? Like how are you handling that?
Nope, it's just a community account. And the thing about Reddit is it's one of my favorite adages about marketing, which is the less you ask, the more you get. And so you do want to maintain a branded presence. People should know that the response is coming from your brand, but kind of trumpeting your brand is not the point and is counter to the point. The point is answering the question and providing value. And then so long as your tone and your present is consistent, then people will associate that value and the good answers with your brand. We don't do anything in terms of like alternate accounts or anything.
Yeah, okay, got it. You do have two more workflows, and so I want to kind of dial into this one here for a second. Is there anything else that you might like improve or like wish you kind of did different or like thinking about for improving this particular workflow?
Mm. So for us, it's mostly about expanding the underlying knowledge base. Like we really pride ourselves on having a good set of legally reviewed articles, but it's still only a portion of our article center, and we're constantly reviewing what we call legacy content to bring it up to our current best practices. I think that what other people could do, that in certain industries, you probably could post almost directly to Reddit with this if it's not a compliance issue, if you're more comfortable with that. But for us, this is kind of the sweet spot. It's simple, it solves a real problem, it reduces headaches, and it allows people to self-serve, which I think is the biggest benefit we've seen from AirOps overall.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to call out too, we have a couple integrations here. So at the top, he's got ChatGPT 4.1 Nano. Then we have their own like internal knowledge base. And then we have a Claude step underneath it. So like multiple LLMs. And then below that is a Google Docs integration. So that's a real huge benefit I'm finding from AirOps. It's just you have like these multiple integrations that you can use, including multiple LLMs.
Yeah, it's funny how excited people get over just the Google Docs integration step because not having to copy and paste and drop into a doc and just having it populate directly into a folder of your choice is really convenient.
Yeah. That is awesome. It looks like we have maybe even a LegalZoom community manager in the chat with us. If you wouldn't mind, if possible, I didn't mention this to Connor beforehand, but if there is like a Reddit response or post that maybe went through this workflow, that would be great to just share in the chat as well. We could move to the next one if you're all set.
Sure. Yeah. So this next one is very closely related to Project Greenline. As you could tell, it's called Project Redline. And this, rather than addressing comments within other subreddits, is meant to help populate our subreddit with relevant Reddit appropriate content. So what this does, and this really is, the workflow is very similar to the previous one. The difference is that we are housing it within a grid. And this is a primary point of value for us, where we can take 50, 100, 1,000 concepts for posts, fill the grid, run the workflow for all of them concurrently, and then get V1s of the outputs, which again go through full rounds of community management review and then also legal review and edits. And then we can kind of map out our entire content roadmap for Reddit months at a time instead of having to do this in drips and drabs. Now, obviously, you got to leave room to pivot here and there, but whenever you need to, you can run this for individual topics on the fly and have a V1 ready in, I think it takes 30 seconds.
So the problem you're trying to solve here was just having some content to put to your own Reddit.
Yeah, but having that content, again, prepared in a way that is appropriate for Reddit because, LegalZoom has a ton of this really good long form legally reviewed content, but it just doesn't translate well to Reddit. It's not the way people want to ingest information. You need it to be shorter, punchier, more to the point. The structure needs to be different. And so really the main benefit here is being able to apply that structure and formatting to make it appeal to a Reddit audience at scale and very, very quickly.
And then how are you deciding on which topics to maybe go after here on the left?
That is actually part of the third workflow.
Oh,
So part of this is
nice.
internal, right? We can see what articles work well for us within our article center, and then we can translate those into Reddit posts. Some of this is seasonal, tax season or make a will month. So we can follow that guideline, but it's also just translating our best performing content into Reddit appropriate formats. And as people convert through our longer form content, that's a pretty good indication that they're finding value in that content. And so therefore they probably find value in Reddit as well.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. I, you want to move on to the next one unless you got something
Yeah,
else
third
there.
one's spicy.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so this one's fun. So this is Project Attentive. What this does is it's essentially listening very closely to the subreddits that we care most about. So what this does is it scrapes the top 50 posts from the last 7 days of a specific subreddit. So you can set this to r/small business or LLC or whatever. It takes those posts and it ingests and analyzes the themes. So it says, what are people asking? What do people care about? What are their concerns, their fears, all of these things. And then from that, it synthesizes a list. And then it says, okay, here are some content ideas that you could produce to speak directly to the things being expressed on these subreddits. And I actually ran one of these ahead of time. So I did, r/entrepreneur, and it isolated some themes over the past 7 days: founder mental health and isolation, scaling versus execution challenges, client management and pricing strategy, all of these things with full bullets. And then from there, it takes those and says, okay, here's an angle for a piece of content, right? And this essentially serves as a very bare bones brief. We have other workflows that can take this kind of thing and do a more fleshed out brief that we can then hand over to a writer.
Yeah.
But it tells you your angle and tells you the exact pain points and key topics to cover if you want to respond to these fears and concerns and the topics that are most popular at the moment on Reddit. And so the benefit here is that you obviously have your in to out flow, which is we have these keywords that we care about. We want to cover them. We're going to build content about them. But then you also work out to in by genuinely listening to what people are talking about and letting that guide how you create content and prioritize it.
Wait, can you say that last part again? So you're rethinking through
Yeah, so
the
we have concepts that we know we need to create content for and
Yeah.
rank for. We're always going to want to rank for things like how to start an LLC. But by pairing that with sort of active listening, paying attention to the communities that we care about and provide products for, we can listen to the things that they're talking about, the things they're worried about, the things they're confused about, and then create content that directly addresses them.
And so this would be content that would live on your site as a blog post or a resource, whatever
And
you need.
Reddit as well. If I think the best way to provide value to subreddits is to listen to what people consistently ask and say on those subreddits and then create informational content to address it.
And so if you were to add this to Reddit, then it would be kind of like a post under your brand account then to help
Yes,
address some of it.
correct.
Okay, cool. Somebody asked in the comments, maybe Jason responded to it, but they were asking about if you include a link to any of your blog posts, like within Reddit.
Entirely depends on the rules of the community guidelines.
Hmm.
If you have built up enough goodwill and it's allowed, then yes, deep links into further content kind of prefaced as like, here's the Reddit appropriate response. It's a little bit abbreviated. If you want to do some deep learning, here are some articles we suggest that we host. I think that's perfectly okay. Again, it does all come down to how much does the community trust you, because that is a degree of self-promotion. So you need to quite literally build up the karma so that when people do see that and say, oh, you're not just trying to sell me on something, you're actually providing value. And I know that because you have provided value in the past.
Yeah. We'll dive into some more questions here in a second about Reddit specifically, but one thing I like about this workflow is I think you could probably repurpose something similar for other forums, like even a SERP scrape, maybe even YouTube descriptions or something like that. Do you think that would be a possibility as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, Reddit's obviously the elephant in the room, but
Yeah.
Quora, other forums, we do have other flows that take a concept and look directly at like a set of keywords and look at what is currently ranking for those terms on the SERP. So focuses on AI overviews, of course, but it looks at the structure, the contents, the topics of those articles, and then recreates that via a brief so that we can build ours and essentially skyscraper what's currently working.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we also always are focused on results and outcomes. So what type of, I know you talk at the first you mentioned like some production cost savings, any other like engagement or anything that you're seeing from some of these or just increased Reddit and presence in general for LegalZoom?
Yeah, so this is one of the funnest questions for me to answer because you have to treat Reddit in a lot of ways the same way you would PR or comms, where it's really about the reach and the audience. And it's much, much harder to nearly impossible to tie it directly to dollar figures. But
Hmm.
because SEO is moving towards more of a brand channel situation, I think that so long as you communicate that upwards to your exec team ahead of time and say, hey, we're not really going about this with KPIs from like a dollar amount. We need to improve brand sentiment, which is a huge thing with AI measurement right now. And we need to just improve our visibility and our presence among these communities that represent kind of our core demographics. So
Yeah.
it's both improvements in terms of internal efficiencies. So being able to remove four people from the process and allow one person to self-serve almost this entire thing. But then also just like what does this mean for the brand's reputation overall?
Yeah, for sure. And then again, this question, anything you would maybe improve or maybe looking to change on this one if you were gonna rebuild or start a
Yes.
rethink?
So this one is interesting because right now I went at it from a very narrow perspective. Can we look at a specific subreddit and understand what's being asked there? I think there's a version of this where you try and look at a much broader range of posts and understand not just what's happening on the most popular subreddits, but what's happening in the more niche long tail subreddits that you can really get persona specific in the way you respond to things. Because, as we move into the world of like AI mode and as LLMs become more pervasive, we know that highly specific persona driven content is what gets surfaced in these very specific prompt and response interactions.
And are you seeing an increase for LegalZoom in AI search in those prompts?
Oh, yeah, actually over the past few months. So between this and a lot of our third party off page work, We've been seeing a nice little lift in brand sentiment, which as kind of the front runners in the space we occupy, it's very nice to see because a lot of our competitors have invested more heavily in that third-party space previously because it's not traditionally been a strategy of the front runner in industry. So we were kind of starting from behind there, but we've been able to reverse that trend both through Reddit and that third-party work.
Nice. That's incredible to see for sure, especially seeing your Reddit work pay off. We are going to do a few more generalized questions, but I thought Ron had a really good question that is workflow specific. How do you decide which LLM to use, like for each of these steps, or if you have some process where you're like, hey, I'm going to use GPT-4 here instead of Claude or something like that?
I cheat. I trust AirOps. So when you go in here and you look at the actual model options, it'll give you a run through of what each is best for. And these are pretty accurate. And if you're ever at a loss for which one is best, I found that actually just asking the Copilot directly, hey, can you look at my workflow and tell me, is there a better model I could use for any of these steps? It's right upwards of 90% of the time. And then there's also just general stuff like, Claude is going to be better for your more creative work and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We had Nicholas Bushner on last week, who has built some like programmatic SEO type pages, and he was mentioning Perplexity is his choice for like research, but then he was using like, I think he was using ChatGPT to like help write the pages, but specifically Perplexity for the research step. So it
Yeah.
really just does depend on like what you're trying to do.
We actually maintain enterprise level licenses for all of our writers so they can do research on Perplexity because they love it so much.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I am going to share just one thing in AirOps real fast. Get your questions in the chat for Connor. I'm sure he would love to start answering those. But I did want to show you what you can do just kind of out of the box in AirOps with Reddit. So we do have a visibility layer to where that's not what you're seeing here, but we do have a visibility layer to where it will help you identify like key Reddit threads that you might want to respond to. Then we have this power agent step, which is very similar to the first workflow that Connor shared. But then what it will do is give you to this specific URL, it'll show the original post, but then give you some potential responses to it. So you have one response, two response, and the third response. This is specifically set up around SEO for AirOps. But the key point here is that, and I think this came up in the chat too. Christopher asked, you're not posting directly to your subreddit from the AI output, are you? It's still human review and edited before it's posted. Absolutely, yes. Connor answered that, but here it gives you some options. And so it's like, oh, if I want to do this, I can take a bit here, I can do a bit here, I can take a little bit here. This is not posting directly to Reddit. This should go, in LegalZoom's case, to like a community manager, maybe for a different brand, it's an editor or something like that. But yes, always have the human review in as part of your process to help maintain that quality. And so if you want a glimpse at that, you can email us at growth@airops.com and put Reddit in the subject line, and we'll be happy to show you more of that. I did want to get to some questions that any folks had. Is any more come in? Let me see. Connor, you were telling me something at the beginning that I thought was really interesting. You mentioned that even if Reddit wasn't showing up in search or LLMs, you might still invest pretty heavily in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not a might, I would. I think there's been a lot of buzz and concern recently about LLMs seemingly pulling back citation rates on Reddit. But, and this might raise some eyebrows, if Reddit citation rates on LLMs drop to 0% tomorrow, I don't think I would change my strategy. And that for me has less to do with LLM behavior than it does with human behavior, or more specifically, like the link between the two. And don't get me wrong, LLM citations of Reddit are great, but it's more that they're the frosting and not the cake. What's really important here, and this is something that I had a light bulb moment with when reading Kevin Indick's post a while back, where he said that when a person performs a search and they receive the answer to that search via AI overview instead of a traditional blue link, they are then something like twice as likely to perform a secondary search for social proof to validate that answer. And that makes perfect sense to me. You get your answer from the machine, you want your answer from a human. So what this means to me is that regardless of what citation patterns look like, and these change weekly at this point, as the usage of answer engines continues to increase, so too will the value of social proof. And that's not something that can be turned on or off overnight. So it's still worth investing in.
Yeah, love that idea, especially around the social proof. Emily had a good question here. Besides Reddit, what other sites do you prioritize for repurposing your web content? I know you have some other like workflows for third-party sites as well.
Ooh, we are definitely doing some forays into Quora. We're just following the lead of the LLMs there and just where our demographics like to ask questions. But third-party content sites, everyone, I think most people know by now, hugely important in terms of how your brand is represented within LLM outputs. And this is less about repurposing content and more about working with these third-party entities to make sure that their content is accurate about our product details. And then also, whenever possible, is fair and towards us in terms of sentiment. So there are some workflows there that literally ingest a huge list of third-party URLs, check them for factual accuracy, check them for sentiment level, and then outputs analysis docs directly into the drive of our partnerships team, who can then take that analysis, reach out to these companies and say, hey, your content looks like this. We would love if it looked like this. What do we need to do to get it there?
Love that. And then Ron has a good question too. In your Reddit strategy, what is your approximate split between like replies and new posts as you're bouncing out? I know that's like a different team, but maybe you have some insight there.
Jason, you want to get that one? If you're still here. I think in general, the way we do it is we have a set calendar and a cadence for the way that we post on our subreddit. And then while that's proactive, our response pattern is more reactive. So as we see these very clear questions and needs arise in these subreddits that we track, we try and answer as many of them as possible every day.
And how many subreddits do you think you're in?
Oof, Jason, the question is, how many subreddits do we currently participate in, and what is the split between replies and new posts?
We're all waiting patiently for that. Maybe while Jason gets us an answer, you can just maybe, what is some advice that you have for people who are just starting out building in AirOps?
So there's going to be some wariness when it comes to automation. We all see the articles about these companies that try to work AI and automation into their workflows and they didn't see the returns, and so they're dialing that back. Where I've found the most success is go to various teams within your org or within your company and find a relatively small but very annoying problem and try and solve it for them using automation. And it's often the simplest and most straightforward automations that get people to buy in and realize the value. So this could be something for our partnerships team where they have Forbes rewrite some content about us, and we need to make sure that they aren't rewriting the rewrites. So we have automatic tracking that scrapes the page every Monday and says, oh, okay, nothing changed, we're good to go, or something changed on this page, maybe take a look at it. For our PMM team, it's an internal product database that anyone can query and self-serve if they need a specific about one of our products. The small but very annoying problems are the ones to go after first, and then you get the buy-in and engagement you need to really go big.
I love that. Starting small, starting simple, and just prove out the concept. And then that helps you get buy-in for sure. Connor, really appreciate the time here today. We are having Ocean Davidson from our team. She's going to be on next week sharing about how she's doing research with AirOps. So if you're interested in how AirOps is using AirOps, this is one of the sessions for you. So really excited for that. And that'll be in our follow-ups to sign up. Connor, this was super valuable today. I think everybody learned a lot. I'm going to be sending out the replay later this afternoon, hopefully. If not, it'll be Monday. But everyone, take another look at what Connor has done. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer questions on LinkedIn or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, would love to.
Okay, great. And join us next week where Ocean will break everything down, and be sure and get the replay to see how you can use some of these in your own AirOps workflows. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at growth@airops.com and we'll get back to you. Everybody have a good afternoon and happy Halloween. Thanks so much.